welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rita Cronice, and I am the coordinator of the Virtual Community of Practice for the Academy of Peer Services. As you can see on the screen, this is our web address for the Academy of Peer Services, www.academyofpeerservices.org. When you click that link, or enter that into your browser, you'll come to our Academy of Peer Services homepage. And here you can learn more about the 50 online courses that we provide for the peer support workforce in the state of New York. These courses are not just limited to New York State, but they are funded by the New York State Office of Mental Health for the certification of peer specialists in New York State. Many states are using our online courses for continuing education purposes, and we ask everybody who is interested to just let other people know about us. Our courses are fully online, they're free of charge, and they're available 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week during the time that we're open. We do close for a very short period between terms just to make sure that our courses are updated and have the most up-to-date information possible. And we do take a lot of feedback from our users to make sure that we're providing a quality product. Our courses are not just for peer specialists, though. They are for anyone who has a role in the workforce that is delivering peer support services, and that includes supervisors, organizational leaders, and co-workers and colleagues who may just be curious about what peer support is all about and what it is that we're being trained to provide. To enroll, you would just come to our homepage and click the login button at the very top of the page. This will take you to a free registration process where you just enter your contact information so that we know how to reach you. We have phone support and actually online and phone support if you have any questions. So that information is provided on the site when you come. I also wanted to mention, which is my project, the Virtual Community of Practice, which takes it beyond the online learning into the real world of jobs, connection, communication, and collaboration. Our Community of Practice features over 200 new jobs each month in the state of New York. We have a newsletter, we have a calendar of events that are happening, and now in the world as it's changed, there's a lot of online events that are being posted there. We have links to peer warm lines and peer support lines, online peer support groups that are happening now all the time. And we just wanted to call attention to a new resource that's been put out available by the Office of Mental Health, which is an emotional support line. This emotional support line that you see here is fully staffed by peers and volunteers who can reach out to anybody who's having who's in emotional distress during this challenging period of time. So, without further ado, I just want to welcome every one of you to our Faces and Places of Peer Support series. We do a monthly webinar on different organizations and different services that are being provided by peers. And today's is going to be a wonderful presentation, and we're glad you're here to join us.
It's an honor to be here to talk about a program that we've been working on so hard at, and Aileen is such a great support for us to do that as well. So you see Aileen and I, we work as a good team. Some statistics about Lewis County. As you can see from the pictures, we take great pride in having a lot of cows. And our population, unfortunately, is decreasing each year. We're the fourth least populous county in New York. Our population, again, lives below poverty level at 12.1%. I take great pride in the cows because I myself was born on a farm. So it's important to me, and it's part of our culture here in Lewis County. We've got a pretty broad spectrum of square miles with 1,290 square miles. Unemployment rate is a little high, 6.8. And the windmills is a huge part of our Lewis County area as well, with 195 turbines, which is one of the largest wind farms in New York State. So we're really proud for that. As far as school districts, we have 6 school districts within Lewis County. two of those districts border other counties, St. Lawrence County and Oneida County as well. So that's a big part of our demographics and knowing where we are. When we created this slideshow, Aileen said, you have to put somebody waving. And I said, why? You want to tell them why, eh?
Well, because it's kind of cultural for Lewis County, as for many rural areas in New York State. It's not just Lewis County, but it's very true in Lewis County. That whether you know the person or not, you're going to wave hello when you see them on the street, or you see a truck on a back road and it's just you in the truck. You're going to wave hello whether you know them or not. And that's just a cultural thing. And if you don't, they know you're not from there. They can tell right away you're not from here. So it is kind of a thing to understand the culture in which your facility is located, because those are the folks you're going to be meeting, you know, when you're in a correctional facility. A county correctional facility. In a state correctional facility, it's very different. But in a county correctional facility, you're going to meet those folks. So understand the culture that you're in. And Lewis County is a wave to you kind of culture.
I can remember when my kids were little, they would say, who's that? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure who that was. And well, why are you waving at someone you don't know? And I said, well, we're always welcoming of our neighbors and people that are even passing through. So we really like to be a culture of welcoming. And I think that's what we are here in Lewis County, because we are small, and that's the focus of this slide, really, is to display that. So the next, you're going to see actual visual of the Lewis County Jail. We are small. There's 42 individual cells within the jail, and there are 2 16-person pods, which people that are in the jail speak that language, for the males, and there's 4 2-person pods for the females or juveniles, or someone that may be on a suicide watch. There is also a 1 2-person pod, which usually is set for someone that's usually being monitored for medical purposes. What really got us going for some statistics was in early 2017, there were 19 inmates that had to be housed out for a total of 428 days because of an increase in drug-related crimes, which for you, those of you that know, that's a huge increase in costs for the county to I've got something popping up on my screen, sorry, for our county to absorb. But if you're looking at other counties and maybe where you live, our county jail may seem small. But again, these demographics are important to understand how we could have success that we're having here in Lewis County. Did you want to add anything, A?
No, it's true.
Okay.
And the drug-related crimes in Lewis County, you know, of late there have been a lot of opioid activity, but I would say the long-standing activity, as in most of rural United States, has been meth. Meth is our pretty most active drug-related crimes, and a lot of reasons why folks are in facilities is related to substance use disorders.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A capture of things that are happening.
Oh, Karen, we lost you again. Oh.
Oh dear.
There you are.
Can you see me?
I can see and
me?
hear you now. Yep. I don't know what happened.
Okay. It might be the storm. Sorry. So in the news, these are just some of the highlights of things that were happening and occurring, because I think oftentimes people think a small community is protected and doesn't have the same experience as some of the larger cities. So these are just some of the highlighted articles. 2-year investigation results in Lewis County drug bust. 4 accused of meth manufacturing in Lewis County. There's a lot of meth manufacturing that has happened in Lewis County and is still continuing. 3 Lewis County people arrested in a month-long meth investigation. Our sheriff and state police and village police work very well together, and looking at the drug use and the meth labs that are happening. They're doing a really good job of making these arrests. Again, federal drug charges are happening. 9 arrested in a drug sweep that happened. Again, that one was mostly prescription, so that's interesting and kind of gives an overall view that it's not just the meth that's happening here as well. Another operation was called Operation Northern Watch, where 16 individuals were arrested, again, pertaining mostly to meth and opioids. So they're really working diligently and doing a lot of work in that area. We did have and are having a high prevalence of overdose deaths in Lewis County, which is very sad. The largest was our Operation Gravy Train, where 106 people were arrested in neighboring counties with $94,000 of drugs being seized. We know it's not just Lewis, it's all the counties that are connecting and even from other states. And just the numerous drug-related arrests are occurring daily and weekly. And we know that has an impact on the individuals and the families and the community as a whole. So we really came together through all of this when it was happening, because I think it kind of numbs you to think, well, this can't happen in Lewis County. But when it was and people were realizing it, we came together for that. Anything, Aileen, you want to add from your view? Okay. So as the community realized what was happening, because we all learn at different phases and it affects us at different phases, whether our family's part of it or we lose our neighbors and we want to get involved. So there was a tremendous outpouring in the community. Everyone wanted to do something. So I've listed some of the things, probably not all, but captured. There was a formation of It's Real and It's Local, where 2 village mayors from a community decided to form a committee, and they responded to the increase of drug use and deaths from the southern part of the county. And they created forums and came together to educate people, because we've got the population goes from birth to death, and you've got senior citizens wondering, what is this happening around? How can we be safe? So education is key in all of that. So the 2 village mayors really took the ring and led by that. Another formation is What You Don't Know Can Hurt You. And again, that was a community member that was in recovery, really began hosting testimonials within each of the school districts in Lewis County to share with the students and the faculty the reality of the drugs, because some people don't know for various reasons. The Lewis County Cares, again, a local reporter, collaborated with our agency here at NRCIL, and we hosted a community awareness forum, and we brought in guest speakers from all over the state and some local doctors and had an expert panel really to educate and really empower and provide information to individuals to ask questions, because sometimes people are afraid to ask the questions, but it was really a great opportunity for us to get together and have that dialogue and ask those questions and get the answers, and it was very inspirational as well. There was formation of a Project Safe community in the northern part. So again, we have the southern part, the northern part, and Lowville was right in the middle. So we've got all of these things happening simultaneously, so that really no one was excluded. So in the northern part, we had a group that was formed to provide support and information, again, to their local community. Because I think it's pretty safe. I've lived here in Lewis County all my life. It's pretty safe to say that we're pretty territorial of where we grow up and where we live. And even crossing the river sometimes can make a difference in how you perceive things. So it was important that we had the southern and the northern and the central part of the county covered. That was important to us as community members, again, part of our culture and helping each other out. There was a formation of Lewis County Action Meeting for Substance Abuse and Opioid Crisis. The Community Services Director reached out to all the local agencies as community-based organizations. She reached out to the peers, community members, and the coalition members of those that I just described, and we formed a grassroots group to unify our efforts, because we were all doing great work and we wanted to bring it all together. So the Community Services Board Director really brought us together. And as NRCIL, as an agency, and other agencies also, we continue to support the community and the groups and the work in the jail, and offer opportunities for sober activities within the community. And it's just all trying to be focused in on what can we do to meet these needs, because having seen it and experienced it, we're all affected in a different way. So anything else to add to that, Aileen?
Yeah, I'm going to make a comment, because you said something that for us is a matter of fact conversation, but for others around the state and in North Carolina don't understand when you cross the river. So Lewis County is divided by the Black River, which is a river that runs north, interestingly, up to Lake Ontario. And north of the river are very, very rural, kind of isolated counties or communities. Loudville is south of the river, and Loudville is a very small community seat as well. I mean, it's not a big town, but it's bigger than the other towns. And so there is a little bit of a cultural divide when you quote unquote cross the river. It's a deal.
Right.
So I just wanted to share that because that's something that we say because we understand what it means. But if you don't live here, you don't understand. And again, understanding the culture in which you are providing services is so important. It's not something you can just say, oh, we did it here, so I can just go to some other county and do it exactly the same way. It takes time to build those relationships and understand where the folks, the residents in that facility are coming from.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's not that we have a disrespect for people that live in areas of the community, but you really trust and come together with your neighbors, and you really want to come together with a solution with those neighbors. So when we really formatted the Lewis County Action Meeting from the Community Services Board Director, she did a great job in bringing us all together to say, you know, your concerns and issues are the same, but let's see if we can unify. And that's important to be reminded oftentimes because all of our communities matter. So we want to work together in unity. So she did a good job with that. So.
And one of the common threads, one of the things that, I mean, if you're working on that, in small rural areas, certainly the common theme is resources, right? We don't have enough resources to do this separately in each community or even in each quadrant of the county. We have to be together and working together on this. And people always will rally around that and say, yeah, you're right.
Right. And our communities are all important. So we don't try to one up another, but we try to, rally around each other and work together. And so that's happening. So that's really exciting. Okay. So making a plan at NRCIL began. So this takes us back to actually, as the slide shows, June of 2014 was our first date that we started at the jail. What was happening before that, though, because NRCIL really does a great job sending their staff to training. We're in Albany and Syracuse and all over, hearing of great initiatives that are happening. And we had heard the great news, and I don't know where, but there had been some great work that was being done in the jail. And we came back and said, this is a great idea. Why don't we try that? And our executive director at the time said, that's a great idea. And again, in a small community, she said, Karen, what do you think? And I said, let's try it. We could have some peers go into the jail. We discussed the plan and made a phone call. So because we're a small community, she said, well, do you know the sheriff? And I said, well, I don't know the sheriff very well, but the undersheriff and I know each other really well. Again, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, so my brothers grew up with the undersheriff. Our families did a lot of things together. So I called and said, hey, I got an idea. He said, oh, what's that, Karen? And we laughed, and I said, we've heard some great things being done in other jails around the state, and what do you think about our advocates and our peers coming in and doing some work at the jail? And he's like, well, I don't know. He said, let's talk about it. So the executive director and myself met with the sheriff and the undersheriff and the warden at the time, shared our ideas, and said, we want to come in and help people. Our walk of life has taken us through recovery sometimes and mental health diagnosis, and it's something we've experienced, and we think we can help. And so the sheriff looked, I'll never forget, the sheriff looked at the undersheriff and said, do you know Mrs. Boliver? And he said, yes, sir, I do know Mrs. Boliver. He said, do you think she's professional and worthy of giving this opportunity? And he said, I really do. So he looked at the warden and he said, do you know Mrs. Boliver? And at the time, again, we're a small community, the warden at the time was married to my husband's first cousin. So she said, well, I do know Mrs. Boliver. She's actually related to me. And he said, so is it consensus that we should let NRCIL come in and try this? And they said, yeah. And he said, okay, if it's good for the two of you, it's good for me. I'll take your opinion on that, and we're going to try it. So we went from having an idea to sharing that idea. We really didn't know what it was going to look like, but thought, let's just see if we can do it. So we just asked, and that provided an opportunity and a platform for us to start. Again, in 2014, we were pushing into the jail at that time to offer our services and what we could support individuals with. And again, we were doing it with our current contracts that we had as an independent living center and with the Office of Mental Health. Do you want to add anything else to that, A, before we move on?
Well, I would just add that while Karen was able to use her resources in the small community to get there,
Right.
this whole like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Ask.
Yeah.
It is relationships. Relationships are where these things kind of can grow. So ask them around in your board of directors or in your agency, who knows who's related to who, how can we, we can at least get an introduction. That really does matter, because the best idea for support of the inmates is not going to fly unless there is a relationship. And this is kind of, again, another cultural thing, in terms of institutional culture. The institutional culture of the jail is not necessarily to provide the best supports for the inmates. The culture is community security. That's what the COs are, the corrections officers are trained in. That's what the sheriff's deputies are all trained in, is community security. That's their culture. So we're coming in with an idea of something that's culturally important to us, supporting people,
Right.
And helping people be the best that they can be. But that might not resonate with them in their institutional culture. So having a relationship is going to be key. No matter, and that's true whether you're in New York City. And so I did a little bit of my growing up in New Jersey, and really New York City is not a big city. It's just a whole bunch of really small towns all jammed together. So it's true whether you're in New York City or whether you're up here in Northern New York. Find out who knows who and get the introduction and start the conversation. The relationships are what's going to make it happen.
Absolutely. And of course, on that first meeting, we had all of our brochures and all the information to share with them as well. And I think what was key to them too was that we had heard of this happening in other places, and we wanted to make our community a better place too. And that resonated with them because, again, everyone wants their community to be the best that it can be. And we wanted the individuals that were there at the jail to have an opportunity to make a difference upon their discharge, to do things a little differently. And we said to the sheriff, give us a chance, give us an opportunity to have a conversation and share our programs and what we can do together. So that, again, began June 9th in 2014. And again, we're preaching to the choir when we're talking about peer support, but really the power of our peer support really is in the quality and power of our relationship, as we've discussed. We start where people are at. What do they want? It's not what we want. It's not our walk. It's their walk. I think more than anything, we give people hope. We encourage them, and we help them to define and move towards the goals that they want and what they can identify for their future, because unfortunately some people haven't been given or felt they've been given the opportunity to define what their future might look like. So we walk with them, we inspire them, we ask them, what do you want to do? And most importantly, independent living centers, we don't do for anyone, we do with. So we give them the skills that they need and help them to feel confident in moving forward. Again, the hope, the empathy, and again, that comes from our own peer experiences. We can say, we haven't been where you exactly are, but we've been in a similar situation. So that support and understanding is huge, because often it's been affected by trauma, something that we've experienced ourselves.
Your party's extension, you may dial it at any time. For a staff directory, press 2. To reach the...
Have you lost me?
No, I hear you.
Sorry, that was somebody that just called in.
Okay, all right. So actually, we often have times of failures with the systems. So we have to re-energize people to have some hope, to say, well, this time it might be a little different. Let's do it together. And oftentimes it's igniting that passion that maybe had died out a little bit with some choices that had been made or consequences. So we walk with people on their journey and continue to advocate with them and really display that power of peer service with each step, because that's pretty powerful. Again, I'm preaching to the choir, I know that. Aileen, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I did. When you mentioned, and this is kind of an administration kind of point of view, we might not have been exactly where you are, and that's true. It is easier to get approval for someone who has jail experience if they've not been in that jail. If they have been in that jail, it's still possible depending on their relationship with the folks who are in that jail. But from our experience in Jefferson County, if someone's been in jail in a different county, it's much easier to bring them in as a peer to provide support in the Jefferson County jail. If they've been in the Jefferson County jail, it's a lot trickier to get them approved to come back in and be a peer supporter.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. So just a little background, there certainly is not exhaustive, but staff training, because people will always say, what do you do for your training? So these are just some of the core trainings, obviously the confidentiality, the corporate compliance, trauma-informed peer support is a huge one, sexual assault, sexual training, care coordination is a big one, along with the community health worker training, the CPI training, quality assurance. We do a lot of safety for in-home visiting because that's where life happens. So we do a lot of home visiting. Obviously, the goal writing that we're going to do to get paid for the work that we do, and our data income and data output, and setting boundaries is a big one as well, because people get real worried or cautious when they hear peers are working with peers. So we have that continuing conversation about setting boundaries and having a safe working environment. Again, this is not an exhausted staff training list, because as an independent living center, we really pride ourselves on having our staff trained, and sometimes have training and bring back to the county some initiatives that they aren't even aware of yet, which is really exciting.
Yeah, so I would also add that many of our staff are certified in the Peer Academy. But you have to understand that NRCIL has been doing peer support before the Peer Academy even showed up. We've been doing this since 1987, providing peer support on a cross-disability basis. So inclusive of physical disabilities, sensory disabilities, substance use disorder, mental health disabilities, all of that. Chronic conditions have all been included in our peer, anything that fits the Americans with Disabilities Act definition of disability has been included in our peer staff. So we've been doing this a really long time, and the list that Karen has up there is certainly core to most of what all of our staff do, but some of our staff are peer specialists by certified through the Peer Academy, and some are certified, I think Karen has a slide later, as recovery coaches. I also just wanted to throw out there that you probably have resources in your community to provide some of this training for you. So this might be a kind of a daunting list, depending on the size of your agency, to provide. And most of this we provide on an annual basis, but to do sexual assault or that kind of sex trafficking training, we contact our Victims Assistance Center to come in and train us. So that sort of thing, there's definitely other resources in your community that you can bring in to provide some of this training for you. Confidentiality training, when we first started in 1987, we were using AIDS community resources to do our confidentiality training. I mean, so there's resources around you that, and it also makes it more interesting for your staff to not have, your internal folks doing it all the time. You can definitely bring other folks in.
Absolutely. So a little bit program data. We make a lot of referrals to drug and alcohol treatment centers, and we've just listed some of the places that we have made referrals to and had success in getting the inmates there. We have weekly support groups in the jail and in the community, which is important because they're receiving those services and supports in the jail, but when they are released, they also have that same level of support that they can encounter. It's funny, a lot of the individuals when they're released, if they're released at say 10 o'clock in the morning, by 11 o'clock, they're walking into our doors here at NRCIL saying, oh, and they're seeing the same advocate that they saw in jail and continuing on with their walk of life and wanting to get connected to those support groups. So we offer Double Trouble, Smart Recovery, anger management, and AA. And what's defined in the jail is based on the need of the people that are there. So right now we're doing AA groups because that's what they most requested. And if there's a time that they request Smart Recovery, we'll turn it to that. So it's what they need, not what we think they need. So we respond to what their requests are, and the majority rules. Referrals in collaboration with community agency is huge. Part of our discharge planning, our list is extensive, from housing to, do you have a doctor? Do you have a mental health provider? Do you need outpatient services? Who's your primary care physician? Are you involved in drug court? Do you need family support services? Because we know that an individual doesn't exist by themselves. They have a family. And maybe there's a child with a disability that could access our family support services program here at NRCIL. Domestic violence, again, making a connection out into the community provider. Employment is huge. We want people to be employed. We want to be contributing members of society, feel good about themselves. Outpatient addiction treatment, DSS services, probation, parole, transportation. I mean, again, focuses in on what does the person need? Where are they at? And that discharge planning starts before their release date, obviously, and is a constant work in progress. Again, remember that we started in June of 2014, and we began an official contract January 2017 to provide the MICA and transitions program at the jail, which ultimately was the same job that we were doing. We displayed it, I feel, as a pretty good success for those 2.5 years that we provided it, and we're recognized for that, and we were offered the contract, and we still have that contract. So we're proud of the work that we do. NRCIL provides a certified recovery coach through CCAR, the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery. So the advocate that is in the jail right now is a recovery coach as well, as are the 2 recovery coaches that run the community groups that we have, which are the Double Trouble and the Smart Recovery and Anger Management. So the 3 of them are on the same page in the work that they do and the delivery of their work, and it really works pretty cohesively. Anything you want to add, Aileen?
Thank you.
So our current services in the jail that we have, we really pride ourselves on believing that education and knowledge are the most powerful tools, and that's what you can use to change your own behaviors, and we're looking at personally. So we share that message with the individuals that we meet with. The support groups I just talked about briefly, we provide the one-on-one peer support and coping skills, wellness approaches. I mentioned the referrals to the community, to treatment programs and facilities, and we work as a team. It's not anything that NRCIL does alone. We work as a solid team with others, have conversations with the other providers that are in the jail. And again, that discharge planning starts at their entry into the jail, and the recovery coaching is offered again on the one-on-one. So again, it's personally based. Not everybody that's in the jail comes out to the services that we provide. It's offered to them, and they share with the CO that they'd want to meet with one of our advocate, and they meet one-on-one or they come out for the groups. They're aware of the schedule that is at the jail. So there are some people that we may not interface with, but the majority of individuals do come out because word of mouth gets around and people they talk. So it's interesting because the feedback gets back to our advocate, and she's pretty filled with pride when she says, wow, I had 10 people come out to group today. And so they share a lot when they're in that group. So it's really rewarding to do the work and to build the relationships, because that's where the magic really happens with people. So any additions, Aileen?
I would just share that there are other groups in the Jefferson County that have been offered include parenting training. We've had that requested. So we've done, which is a group that we do in the community, but it's Love and Logic, parenting the Love and Logic way. And so it really is something pretty, if it's a fixed curriculum, you do have to get it approved by the facility, but it's pretty easy to get stuff approved if you're doing a fixed curriculum, if you can show some evidence-based approaches to how you're doing. So in the community, we also do a wrap for recovery.
Yes.
That was it. Thanks.
Yes. So really, it's knowing what individuals are requesting in the jail and whether you can respond and give that, provide that service or link to another agency that maybe can. So again, the message that our advocates share, and what I believe all of us do, is to believe in yourself. We do give hope. We certainly have a good listening ear, because that's all part of being a good advocate. We link and refer. That sharing of information is huge. Connecting people, the choice is theirs. We provide the information, and sometimes maybe they don't want to follow through the first time around, and we'll be there the second time around if they realize that it didn't work so well the first time. We're there to help them, and we don't ever close our door or close our back or turn our back. We're there to help. And we always guide with education, because education is crucial. We do a lot of SOAR applications, which is the SSI, SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery. In my mind, that's kind of a fast-track application to Social Security when someone is homeless or at risk of being homeless, and they have a mental health diagnosis or an addiction, and it kind of gives it a speed track for that individual to get the services that they need quickly. So our advocate is certified in that as well and can do those applications, which is really helpful. Any additions, Aileen?
Thanks, Karen. Nope.
Okay. I do want Aileen to talk about this. It was really the idea that brought the warm line along. We a warm recovery line that we share within.
Nope, Karen, we lost you again.
Oh dear.
There you are. It's
okay,
the storm. I'm sure it's the storm.
I'm so sorry. Just let me know when you lose me. So Aileen, I'm going to let you talk about the warm line a little bit, because you really gave that birth.
Sure. And this came from being on an incident review committee for a mental health clinic, where a person had was referred for treatment, substance use disorder treatment, on a Friday, and overdosed on Sunday and died. And so I'm at the clinic listening to them describe what happened, and pretty much they're going down the list of, did we make the referral? Did we get the documentation? Did we have the release of information in there? And I guess there was nothing else we could do. And I just couldn't tolerate that. My skin was crawling and I could not keep my mouth shut. And I said, all right, this is definitely predictable human behavior. When we go on a diet on a Monday, we have the biggest turkey dinner we can find on a Sunday. If we get married on a Saturday, we have the bachelor party on Thursday. This is human behavior. If you know that you're going to start something that's life-changing, even though you know it's good for you and you're looking forward to it, like getting married, and you know it's going to be great, you still have this, you still do this one last thrill thing, right? That's human behavior. That's predictable. We can put something in place so that when people are on the edge of making that choice to do that one last high, maybe they can call and talk to someone who is in recovery and knows what that feels like. You have to know what that feels like in the back of your neck, in the pit of your stomach. You got to know that feeling to be able to help them. And to be, when your friends are knocking on the door at 10 o'clock saying, come on, let's go out. You can be on the phone with someone and say, you guys go ahead, I'm on the phone, I'll catch up with you, whatever. And we'll stay on the phone with you until you're feeling better, more confident about staying in. So when I pitched the idea internally, it was to 2 recovery coaches we had on staff, and they loved the idea and said absolutely they were in. They wanted to do this, and they carried this service forward for a number of years, just the 2 of them, answering calls day or night. Well, at night. So we actually ran it from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. during the week and all day Saturday and Sunday. So if there was a traditional service provider available, they would go to that service provider. We didn't want to we didn't want to interrupt their regular relationships. But when people are closed their doors at night, and like I said, your friends are calling at 10 o'clock at night, your substance use counselor is not available. So we wanted to put this in place so that you could, talk about how it was feeling, what it was like, what might Monday be like when you enter the, rehab facility. So, and both of those folks had done that. So they were very excited about being able to do that. And we're still running the warm line. The warm line has expanded to beyond just substance use disorders. We also have the folks who are cross certified and are working, helping folks with mental health disorders as well. So that's our warm line.
Thanks, Aileen.
You're welcome.
I still remember the day when we had that conversation and I said, oh, it was an aha moment. What a great idea. Yes, let's go with it. And again, that's the beauty of an independent living center. We fill gaps when things are brought to our attention. We just want to act, and we pretty much do. And so I thank Aileen for having that foresight to do that. So we talked about certified recovery coaches. We have 3 certified recovery coaches here in Lowville. So again, they are, but not limited to, they develop, the recovery plan, not our plan, the person's plan.
Knowing that there's many pathways to recovery, right? So it can't be there's many ways you can get there.
Absolutely. And respecting that as well.
Right.
Helping to initiate and sustain an individual within a family in the recovery, because we know, again, it's not just the individual. They live with other people. They have spouses. They have children. They have parents. And our families are dynamics. We don't know what that looks like because it's different for everyone. So the support of that family in that family environment, whatever it is very important. So it's understanding that as well. Obviously, promoting recovery by removing the barriers and obstacles, because that's huge. A lot of that could be your circle of friends. And when you live in a small community, that can be very hard. And how to recreate another circle of friends. We have to really be creative in what we do. Again, we serve as a personal guide and mentor for people seeking or already in recovery. We help them find resources for harm reduction, as Aileen said, detox treatment, family support and education, online and local support groups. I can remember, and I don't know how many years we've been doing this, but years ago, I was sitting in a community services board meeting and people were asking, well, when is AA meet, and do we have any groups on this night? And everybody was kind of floundering like, well, I don't know. And I sat there and I thought, well, this is ridiculous. We need to know when these meetings are being held. So I said to our executive director, can we create a flyer that has all that information on it? Because people are in need of knowing. And well, sure. So we created a brochure that has all of the groups, and we created it for pretty much the Jefferson-Lewis County area, Monday through Sunday. Where can you go to get help, whether it be AA, Al-Anon, Double Trouble and Recovery, Smart Recovery, whatever it is, so that people have someplace to go and at least know that there's someone that they can go to. So we've been doing that brochure for some time. Again, it was a gap. We identified it and filled that as best we could, which is important because we have to support people where they are at. Anything you want to add to that, Aileen, or expand upon?
Just that our recovery coaches are just that. They're coaches. We're not clinical. So we definitely support or encourage treatment. We recognize that we are not treatment. There's really a line that you have to make sure that you're not crossing over when you're providing coaching. And it's really the peer support that people want to know. What's it like there, and when you have someone who's been through treatment or through a 12-step program or something, they can describe it, in a way that makes people feel more comfortable. Again, understanding Lewis County, when you cross the river, there is this, all right, so you cross the river. It's a thing to cross the river. But when you have someone who says, okay, well, when you cross the river for that meeting, it's like this. It smells like smoke, or it smells like coffee. or there's, a ton of people in that meeting, but on the other side of the river, there's only 3 people in the meeting, and, and it smells like apple pie. People want to know just practical stuff that's going to help them be comfortable in accessing whatever resources are available, whatever resources they think that they need, that's going to help them stay healthy.
Absolutely. And if someone needs that helping hand, or to say, I really don't want to go to that meeting alone, we have the ability to flex our schedules to say, well, you know what, if you're apprehensive about going to that meeting alone, we can go to that first meeting with you if it makes you feel better. And again, that's just doing good peer work, alleviating those anxieties that we may have. And if it's going to mean their success, we're certainly going to be there to do that. And again, it's going to look different for every person.
Right. But we're not diving into people's pasts. We're not doing treatment. We're not doing CBT. None of that happens with a coach. It's really peer support.
Absolutely. Where they're at today and where they're going for tomorrow, and what's their goals and how can we help. So that's what it's about. So on this slide, you're just going to see, this is a listing of our support groups, our anger management support group, and PTSD anxiety support group, Smart Recovery, Double Trouble in Recovery, Traumatic Brain Injury, the Reaching Out to Each Other, and the Walk a Block. Again, we're blessed as an independent living center to have multiple programs existing under our roof. We're a mental health recovery center as well, so that allows us to have a lot of flexibility with the other programs that we offer to support, to have some sober activities, because really that time, we're looking to replace things that maybe happened at the bar. Well, we don't want to go to the bar anymore. That environment isn't good for us. So what could we engage in that would be similar to that? So having sober OP events, and whatever people say their needs are, and it's certainly not our ideas. What do you want to do? We can make it happen. We can try it.
So we've had, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to share that the soberoki, the karaoke as a sober event is a ton of fun. We've had cider and sips, so the paint and there's cider and paint, the paint and sips thing that happens in bars. All right, we're going to do it differently, and we do it with apple cider, and it's still everyone comes together and has a great time, and our amateur artists, have fun together. And we do a lot of, but you have to build those things, because those things don't necessarily. They're not necessarily already existing in your community, specifically to support the folks who are in recovery and or transitioning out of a facility.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's evolving every day, which is the exciting part. So as we've said throughout this presentation, working as a team is key. We meet monthly at the jail as providers to discuss how our workflow is going, any concerns that we have to share. So the people that sit around our table is CRADO, which is our addiction treatment providers, Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, which is the mental health provider, our NRCIL advocate, we have probation at the table, we have parole at the table, we have our jail warden, Tim Thayer, at the table, we have the nurse RN, and we sit at the table each month. We know each other by name. The individuals that are providing the services at the jail correspond with each other while we're there. And we talk about what's happening, what's working, what do we see as red flags, or do we need to be aware of something? Well, what's happened since yesterday when I saw that individual? And the parole and the probation really are instrumental in a lot of the information sharing, because maybe what happened at court is really going to stop the plan that maybe that person had 2 weeks prior. Our advocate, it does go to the court. Each Friday, court is held here in Lewis County, and she's there so she can be with the individuals and hear what's happening, hear what's being presented, hear what the options are, because ultimately it is up to the judge. It might be up to probation, may have a part in it, parole, and what the options are. Because just because you want to go to treatment doesn't mean you're going to get treatment. It depends on what's happening in your life, what your sentence is, what do you have going on, and it does. What have you tried before? So if you've gone to Willard before, chances are you're not going to be sent there again. So we sit around the table for a good hour, hour and a half every month, and we talk about things. One of the things that did come up was Medicaid-assisted treatment. We currently don't have that, but it's in process. There's conversations happening, I should say, about the pros and the cons, and we're talking about that. The new bail reform law, again, that was a hot topic. Our Community Services Board Director came and met with us and said, what do you think? How is this going to affect us? And I have to say for today, as of today, it hasn't changed much of what we have seen and the people that we're working with. Things are they're flowing, they're still flowing. So we haven't seen a lot of change yet for that. So the meetings offer an opportunity for our relationships to continue to grow and to really solidify. We've got a great thing going on with our team. Yeah.
Hi, I don't mean to interrupt, but we have 8 minutes left for questions and answers.
Okay.
And that was our last
Anything you
slide.
want to add?
Nope, that was it. Our last, there you go.
Okay.
So the next slide is saying, do you have questions?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I
but
do
one thing before that, Karen, can you just, I forgot to ask, but can you share or explain the actual schedule that you guys have with the jail of like how often your peers are there, the days of the week they're there?
Yeah, if I can find that. Now, let's see. Where is that?
It should be minimized on your tray, on your computer, down at the bottom. Is it minimized? Is there a Word document down there?
There is not. Let me see. Maybe this is it. There it is. Can you see it?
You just have to share the Word doc. You have to share that application.
Oh, I thought I
Same way
did.
you share the PowerPoint.
Okay, let's see.
So just click on the up arrow, the box with the up arrow, and then.
Can you see it?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So that shows
Scroll down
when we are. There we go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So on Mondays, and this is a formal sheet, but we're available beyond these times. But we're set to be there. Our schedule is 9:30 to 11 on Mondays for the female support group. On Tuesdays, 9:30 to 11, we have the AA and one-on-one meetings with inmates. 9:30 to 11 on Wednesdays, the male support group. And we're very flexible for one-on-one. So whenever individuals give the COs a request to see Donna, she's able to respond to that because she keeps her schedule as free as she can while she's up there. And Friday is the Lewis County Court in the AM. And then again, she's available when, especially with discharge planning, if someone's going to be released, she's got to have that availability to be flexible. And we also have on here, we share the warm line and that other staff as well are covering, but that's our schedule. And the other providers are there on various days. I believe Credo is there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Behavioral Health and Wellness is also there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So when you look at that schedule from a provider's point of view, we have contact with individuals a lot on multiple days. It's really working well. It didn't start out that well. It took a while to get to that point because there are things that the jail has to do as well in their schedule with their activities and other programs that might be going on. So that's our schedule as it is. And being mindful of the time, we're open for questions.
So we do have a few questions in the chat, and I noted that there's you had some flexible hours available for one-on-one meetings. One of the questions in the chat was, is there a guard present during the one-on-one meetings?
Absolutely not. There are, obviously, they have their cameras, but we have a room that we can meet on one-on-one for confidentiality because individuals don't want anyone there. So we've got a great relationship with the COs as well, and they know when we're in need because they're watching the cameras. So at no point is anyone alone, truly. But as far as hearing, no, there's no CO there for one-on-ones.
Great. And I'm not sure if this question was relevant to the training for peers, but they wondered if some of these classes were available for other counties and other jails, like Otsego County was a specific question.
Well, actually, the programs that we do are the Smart Recovery and Double Trouble in Recovery, and the anger management is from SAMHSA. So I guess my answer to that would be, I would assume they could be available. I don't know what is available in your community, but you certainly can be trained to do these trainings and provide them for the community you're in.
Right, we would support you to approach your facility to see if there's something that you could help with there. NRCIL's right now in Jefferson and Lewis counties, and our region of service really is Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence counties. So we don't go to Otsego County, but if you want to start something in Otsego County, we'd be happy to help you out.
Absolutely.
Help you do it.
Right.
One other question from the chat before we open it up to other questions. Have you had any issues finding smart recovery facilitators for your program?
No, actually, our advocates are facilitators for Smart Recovery.
We've had
And
our
they're
staff
listed
trained.
Yes, yes. So they're listed as providers of that training.
And one other question came in. Have you seen any reduction in recidivism since you started this program?
You know, that is not something that we are actually tracking, but I bet we could set something up, Aileen, to do that, couldn't we?
In the beginning, in the first year and a half, we tracked it, and there really was a remarkable reduction. But then we lost track of it, and the facility was not helping us. The facilities don't really want us tracking that. So I don't really know after 2015. I don't know.
Right.
So are there any last questions? You can add any questions to the chat that you would like.
Rita, I had a private question from Melinda Peck just asking where's the warm line located. And the warm line is staffed by folks in Jefferson and Lewis counties, and it's staffed by NRCIL staff. While the warm line could be anywhere, I suppose, we feel it's important to have people answering the phone who know the resources in that area. So if we had someone answering the phone from Otsego County and they don't know where to refer you to, again, it's peer support. So sometimes it's not just call Credo, but it's call John Smith at Credo, because he's the one who's going to get you into wherever it is you needed to go next. It's knowing that relationship and sharing it on the warm line that's really valuable. And so I think we think it's important to keep it local.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Great answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just take a deep breath here. And first of all, thank you, Karen and Aileen.
Aileen, it's fine. Yeah.
Aileen, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And what really inspired me is that, local communities, neighbors coming in to help neighbors, and the power of knowing people. When you have an idea and knowing who to talk to start to collaborate to create something like this, this was a really powerful presentation. I think this was a great example of what we can do when we work together. So I want to thank you. I also absolutely want to thank Garrett Smith, who has been our host for many of these webinars and for even recommending. He was the one that came to me with the idea of having you on, and I'm so glad that he did. I wanted to also mention that some of the trainings that you offered, the regional advocacy specialists in OMH offer many of these trainings. So if
Correct.
you are in another location and you want to reach out to your local regional advocacy specialists, they do a lot. And before I turn this back over to Garrett for his final talk about the in-person RAC meeting that's coming up, I just wanted to mention that our virtual community, our Academy of Peer Services virtual community, has networking meetings every Thursday evening online. I see a few folks that come to our meeting regularly. Tonight's topic is going to be on building your own personalized recovery toolbox with one of our regular members. We're now sharing leadership with that meeting, so people that come regularly can present on a topic that they want to, and tonight's is going to be on building your recovery toolbox. So I'll turn it back over to Garrett. Thank you very much for everything, everyone.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Garrett.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you,
you.
guys. One thing I do want to mention before I say talk about the RAC is that I do see some names on here of people that I know are doing great work in their counties and that are trying to get involved or have some level of involvement already with their local county jail. I would strongly encourage that you reach out to NRCIL, reach out to Aileen and Karen if you want to get some more support around that or some their insights around what they're doing in Lewis and Jefferson County, because it really is a good help. And I do think community efforts is the best efforts. So collaborate with one another. Definitely feel free to reach out to them if you want to, pick their brains a little more. I know the Faces in Places is more of an overview or like a snapshot of what you guys are doing, but it's so much more than what we were talking about for this hour that you're doing. So please feel free to reach out to them. They're more than willing to offer any type of advice or insights that they have around this topic. Just one last thing, just to recap on what I said earlier about the Regional Advisory Committee, is that we have our face-to-face meeting in Albany. It's going to be in Castleton, New York, specifically. But, everything around Albany is just considered Albany. But it's going to be in Castleton, New York. It's a face-to-face meeting. It's on the 13th and 14th. We have scholarships available now. Each region, except for New York City, gets 20 scholarships available, and New York City has 30 scholarships available. These scholarships will cover your transportation, food, and lodging. So if you're interested in attending the RAC, learning more about the RAC, and just being a part of systems advocacy and being involved in systems advocacy, this is something that I think you'll really like being a part of. One of the greatest things for me when I go to the RAC, the face-to-face RAC, is being able to connect with peers across the state and seeing the work that peers are doing across the state from all levels, from the grassroots level all the way up to, the macro or the administrative levels. To me, it's all going towards the same cause. So, if you're interested in that, you can either reach out to me directly, or if you're not a part of the Central New York region, you can reach out to your regional advocacy specialist. If you also want to be a part of the listserv, where that information, similar information to the RAC goes out, also conferences, trainings, etc., grants, I kind of try to do the whole gamut. Definitely reach out to me and I can add you onto the listserv as well. Thanks again, Rita, for allowing us to be a part of this Academy of Peer Services Faces in Places.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You
Thanks,
too.
everyone, for your time. Bye now.
Bye.